Evening, yeah, Rollins. Just making sure. Can somebody just tell me whether my microphone is working? Because the inner workings of the iPhone said that the microphone wasn't working. So somebody can give me the thumbs up or something. Running about, trying to sort a two-stringer. Very hot. Very, very hot. Oh, welcome to the Theatre of the Mind, live number 59. Welcome to the body of the Kirk. I just want to make sure that I have all of my stuff at my disposal. Right, lovely, lovely. Let's have a look at thank you, Bovril. Let's have a look at some of the comments. I didn't manage to get into the comments tonight, running around just putting stuff on paper, but good to see Andrew Turner's back in the body of the Kirk tonight. Albert Tatlock, I swear, what's his face, Half Man Half Biscuit, they did the Len Ganley stance. I don't know whether you're aware of Half Man Half Biscuit from the 80s, but one of the the people that know, and the people that don't. But they're revered, Half Man, Half Biscuit. They could make a fortune if they ever came back into the tour, I'm sure. But they did the Len Ganley stance. What was it? There was Trumpton songs. There was, and I'm sure they did an Albert Tatlock, because he was a legend. Coronation Street legend, Albert Tatlock. Andrew James, double A. We need a run of your top 500 albums and 500 singles. Actually, I was looking at Led Zeppelin today. I was looking at a 5-minute Jimmy Page interview where he said, oh, yeah, all the concerts were different because we were just riffing. We had the rough outside guideline of the song and then we just went for it. Oh, can you imagine the 70s? Mind you, the audience was mostly on Quaaludes. There's going to be a few John Lennon re-releases out later in the year. Andrew, what's your source? Fabulous. I know that they've got, I was going to kind of talk about it tonight, but we may as well get into it now. I understand that the Beatles, they're going to have 4 single films about each Beatle, and the films are going to intersect somehow, and it's going to come out sometime, was it 2027? I mean, that's just phenomenal. How they're going to do that, I'll never know. I mean, you could say AI, but anything by the Beatles. And, you know, as a little boy growing up in the Northeast, they were just the Mop Tops, they were just the Beatles. As I've grown up, I've grown to appreciate the subtleties and finer things about the Beatles. And, you know, maybe if we get a chance tonight, I might tell you the Abbey Road story that I embarked upon a little while later. In June 2024, the Lennon estate, with Sean Lennon as producer, will reissue Mind Games as a massive 72-song collection. Whoa, Tower Block Tracy. I've still got the original Mind Games album somewhere on vinyl. Sean Lennon. I saw Darnie Harrison again. We were kind of Facebook friends, and he's releasing an album this year, so it's going to be very, very busy. Obviously, the Beatles' progeny are releasing their own stuff. It'll be interesting to see whether anything by Sean Lennon is within the Beatles canon, so to speak. Evening to Wiggy Videos 13, Andrew James, Amazon AA, and a few music sites. God, honestly, I could talk about music every single live for all of the lives, because I'm just a proper musical anorak, and there's loads of stuff that I've forgotten. But you've got to remember, I grew up in a time when music was, there was kind of magazines for girls, and obviously I've got sisters, so they used to bring those magazines with like Mark Bolan and the Osmonds and the Jackson 5 and all the pop stuff. Used to bring them into the house. I used to devour them. Just gimme. And as I said in the last live, then going on to Sounds and Melody Maker and my youth. I'm not saying it was the best time of my life, but musically it was just awesome. just hearing songs like Blue Oyster Cult, Don't Fear the Reaper, and then it being juxtaposed with, I don't know, I'm not going to go ABBA. No, I'm not. I'm definitely not ABBA-esque. But just the pop songs of the late 70s. There was, can you remember, was it Street Band? They did Toast. That was Paul Young. Paul Young is lead singer. And I went on to meet him. And I've got a photograph somewhere of me and Paul Young doing our Man from CNA pose. But anyway, that's just, you know. And the other thing I meant to tell you the other night was the thing about radio and music is anoracking. Now, the term comes from, certainly in radio, I don't know about music, but in radio, if you've got somebody who loves radio, they invariably wear an anorak. And you can hear them 50 paces away. It's the swish, 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 swish of the anorak. And you can just go, he's going to tell me how big my transmitter is and what its power it has and and everything. And all I want to know is what's in the charts. So we did have, there is a radio DJ that I hold in the highest regard, whose nickname was Swish, because he just used to attract all the anoraks. I'm not going to tell you who, maybe another night. But welcome to the Body of the Kirk. Welcome to live number 59. Can you believe that? Next live, Sunday at 8 o'clock, 21st of February, 2024. So we're live again on Sunday at 8 o'clock. It's a milestone for me, and it might not mean much to you, but there is a backstory which at some point I'm going to be able to tell you. But at Adrian Allen on X, or formerly known as Twitter, I lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of followers. And today we hit 100 followers. So if you're on X and you're here and you're either on your phone or on your computer, please follow me on X, because we need to get to 500, which seems like a massive mountain to climb, but we'll get there. We'll get there. As I said on Sunday, for those that have been very, very generous for the channel and for the lives and for what I'm attempting to do, I said that the legendary Battenbergers would get a mention at the beginning of every live. So the super chats and the super stickers are open this evening. If you feel so encouraged to drop a little financial encouragement my way for the work that we put in, each live takes about 2 days of research and stuff. That there is an old adage in radio where it's normally 1 hour for 1 hour on air. 1 hour research, 1 hour prep for every hour that you're on air. But doing late night phone-ins, I used to do 8 hours for every hour on air. So if you feel so inclined this evening, the super chats and super stickers are open for your delectation. I want to say thank you to Rich, who said, Adrian, have this on me. Many thanks. Great content tonight. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate your kindness. Ken, the man. Adrian, have this. It's a little coffee, little sticker. I don't know whether I can put them stickers elsewhere, but thank you for the coffee, Ken Man. Brian Ravenscroft, Marmite is the top. I'm with you, but I'm trying to encourage the new Mrs. Allen. She's not having it. Or the Marmite, before you get your own gags in. Thank you, Brian. I will secrete some Marmite about my person so that nobody in this house nicks it. Mind you, I do like the little cubes of Marmite or Bovril. And here's the thing. This is contemporary resonance for you before I get back into the legendary Battenbergers. Did you know that Horlicks tablets are on the way back? Now, I thought they were going to be there pre-Christmas. I was going to buy my sister. Hopefully she's not watching this tonight. I was going to buy, as a little treat, I was going to buy her some Horlicks tablets. Do not start and say, Adrian, what's Horlicks? At your age? Oh, sorry, the clean version. So Horlicks is like a malty drink that helps you sleep of an evening. But they put them in the tablets and you can't get them anywhere. If you try and find them online, they're like stupid prices. But they were going to release them before Christmas and then it was in the new year. And now they're saying in the spring. But if you can remember them and you like them, Horlicks tablets are on their way back. Josh Ward, Adrian, keep up the good work. Have been a subscriber since the beginning. Josh, thank you very much for your kindness and your I think it was a super chat. Thank you very much for that, Josh. Do appreciate it. And the fact that, and everyone that's here this evening, that if you're subscribed, please make sure that you are, because it's a bit weird. YouTube is a bit weird. Up and down, up and down, up and down. And I'm talking about YouTube. Yeah, wrongin'. To Lynn Turner in New Zealand, who's always here. Hopefully she's here. I haven't seen her yet. Vivian Kenyon, chocolate Horlicks was nice. Can you remember that chocolate spread you could get from M&S at one point? Lynn Turner, thank you for your super chat from the other side of the world. At some point, the new Mrs. Allen and I are going to go to New Zealand, where you can ski in the mountains and sunbathe on the beach at the same time, which is fabulous. Hang on, what's Viv Kenyon? Yes, that's a bit weird. Pixelated. Now, unless that's... I should have a stable connection. That is very odd. Because it's fine here, where I can see myself. But I am watching on the computer just to see... Lynn Turner's in the church, in the body of the kirk. Lynn, welcome. Thank you very much for your kindness. And the Bovril. Adrian, put some towards a jar of Bovril. Oh, there's nothing better in winter. I can't work these people out who don't like Bovril or Marmite. I just can't. Okay, thank you. It's kind of cleaned up. I did, before I came on air, so to speak, I did look and I thought, well, do I put it on Wi-Fi? It's more stable on Wi-Fi than 5G. Evidently not. So thank you to all the legendary Battenbergers for their super chats and their super stickers. If you do, at any point this evening, I will give you mentions and mentions and mentions on Sunday's live. And I was blown away by the amount of people watching on Sunday. It was fabulous. So tonight we're gonna... I did think about making this a Steve Wright special, but we've got... fabulous. But what do you mean yuck for Horlicks? The Bovril, you love Bovril? Horlicks is all right. No, you see, the drink is a bit malty. malty, malty. But if you get the tablets are much better. Horlicks tablets, as a young boy growing up in the Northeast, you can only buy them from the chemist. Quite why, I've no idea. Now, hopefully, everywhere. So I was thinking about, I'll do the Bovril. Lynn Turner's a Marmite girl. Well, I think we could tell, Lynn. I think we could tell. Bovril, yuck. My uncle was a senior engineer manager at Horlicks in Slough. Went to India from 1959 to 64, developing the new build factories. There's a story. If you'll allow me, I can't even speak tonight. If you'll allow me, then some stories have come through that, because I want to make this channel about your stories. Because that's late night phone-ins, that's what it was all about. It was all about the callers, and the listeners just listened and were enthralled. Hang on, what's Tablock Tracy up to? Horlicks tablets, £2 from B&M, as from spring 2024. I know, I went into my local B&M and went, hello, my name's Adrian. Have you got any Horlicks tablets? They looked at me as if I'd gone out. Pixelated again. So bear with me. I went into B&M. They didn't know anything about it. I just said, oh, don't worry. I'll be back in when they're out. What's all Horlicks tablets? Unless it's YouTube, because I'm sure that I am on Wi-Fi and it should be fine. So I think if I sit still long enough, I won't pixelate again. So I was going to make it a Steve Wright special tonight, but because there's other stuff to talk about, but we will, there's stories and stories and stories. So Steve Wright is on the agenda this evening, and national treasures, because if you think about it, all those old boys from Radio 1 and Radio 2, kind of 20 or 30 years ago, I never listened to Radio 2. It was a bit, well, it wasn't me. I was punk. Didn't play any punk. I mean, I'm sure they will do at some point. But I was definitely a Radio 1 boy. But as I got into the industry and worked in radio and met quite a few of the bigger names, It is it's a labour of love. So some of these old boys, I was going to tell you a story. So I'm sitting with an old Mrs. Allen who didn't become Mrs. Allen because she wasn't good enough quality. We were sitting in, I don't know whether you know the area, but there's kind of a Richmond in North Yorkshire, but there's a Richmond in Surrey. It's very posh. It's where Mick Jagger lives. He's always walking around going, is that Adrian Allen still here? And we were just sitting outside of a Chinese trying to work out what we were going to do. And Jimmy Young, you know Radio 2, Jimmy Young pulls up right outside the Chinese restaurant, pulls up, gets out of his car, a little... I don't know whether it was a Mazda or it wasn't. It must have been the missus's car. Obviously, he drives a Rolls Royce, or did. And he went in the Chinese. And then, like 3 minutes later, came out the Chinese with the Chinese and got in the car and went home. And I was like, Jimmy Young. I'd been in the game for a while, but Jimmy Young picking up his Chinese in Richmond, didn't even know he lived there. And then there was Chris Tarrant. I was sitting in another Chinese. This time in, it's very posh. The area's very, very, very posh. Kind of, oh, come on, Adrian, it begins with an E. And Chris Tarrant walks into the Chinese. And I said to the same old Mrs. Allen, who wasn't good enough quality to be Mrs. Allen, I said, what is it with me and you sitting in Chinese restaurants and bloody radio DJs coming in? I think it was his local, according to the staff. Chris Tarrant. Well, I never. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Steve Wright and National Treasures. We're going to talk about Dan Wootton. Dan Wootton. He hasn't died. He hasn't. Hang on. Aidan, thank you. Breaking. SNP and Conservative MPs have walked out of the Commons chamber in an apparent protest over the Speaker's handling of the Gaza ceasefire debate. Oh, I know. Don't be telling me about a mass debate in the Commons. Satsumas. What, you don't know the story? Table tennis rackets? Can I? Oh, hang on. This is not monetized, so I can say this. Auto asphyxiation, I think. And, Stephen, the MP that strangled himself to death with a satsuma in his mouth. You don't know the story. Google that one. Oh, Google will definitely give you that one. So it's all kicked off because the SNP wanted to put something through Parliament. And then Labour says, oh, no, hang on, lads. Let's amend it. Let's have a ceasefire. Humanitarian ceasefire. And what's happened? It's all kicked off. They want Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the Commons, want his head on a platter tomorrow. Oi, Lindsay, mate, come here. Right, my office, first thing in the morning. Oh, am I going to be spanked again? Well, if you pay me enough. Did I say that out loud? Oh, nectar of the gods. So we're talking about Dan Wootton. Dan Wootton hasn't died. No, he's still alive. And we've got an exclusive story. I'm going to look at some of your comments because they're... What? Honestly, I'm all pixelated. Must be an age thing. Sean, horrendous pixelation. I know. I swear. Now, can I might come off the Wi-Fi. Right. If this don't work and it stops, stay there, don't move. And I'm going to... Ooh, do I restart the stream? Don't think you can. Oh, terrible pixelation. Jesus, YouTube. It's shite, man. This is 2024. Mate, hang on. Let me see if I can do this. Let's see if I can... No. Oh, and that, oh my word, it's the bloody Wi-Fi. Technical term that we use in radio. There you go. You can see me ugly fizzog now. Be careful what you wish for. I've done all the super chats and super stickers. Remember, they are there for your, if you wish. I think there's a little square with $1 in it under the comments. Bit of gossip for you. I'm hearing that Tucker Carlson had arranged an interview with Boris Johnson, and Boris Johnson had asked for £1 million. Boris has pulled out. Now, judging by how many kids Boris has got, that'll be the first time ever that he's pulled out early. Made me chortle for 5 minutes. Tower Block Tracy, you tart. Preferred the pixelation. Thank you very much. You're too kind. So we'll get into. I've got an exclusive story that it's called Reading Blind. It's where you haven't read it before and you're just reading it like you've never read it before. It's a term we use in radio. It's called Reading Blind. Not the best at it, but I'm going to. Bovril, yeah, £10,000 per kid. I mean, he's got a football team now, hasn't he? And he's got, have you heard the rumour about he's got a daughter in the House of Lords? She was given a life peerage. Not heard that one? You must have heard that Johnson scuppered a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. And are you watching the reportage in the mainstream media? They literally want Putin flattened. Now, I think it was Rich that said, and I am going to address the comment, Rich, who said, what do you think about Julian Assange? So you've got Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks put some tasty stuff up there. I mean, proper tasty. Hillary Clinton, she just was not happy. I mean, literally, I can't go any further. I can't. But they're trying to extradite Julian Assange. I don't think they will, because I think the whole world will kick off big time. But since the Tucker Carlson interview, the Western media, the Western political class, they want him gone. They want him dead. They want him flattened, and they can't, because they're wonderfully rich. I mean, trillions and trillions and trillions. I saw some figures yesterday where Russia's just laughing all the way to the bank by trillions of dollars. They've never been richer, and they're trying to pick a fight with them. Nah. So the Western media are literally, Vix Tex, Hillary Clinton. They reckon she died in 2016. I mean, I kind of get that some of these conspiracy subjects and theories, they're just utter nonsense, because the CIA, if they wished, they could kind of just throw stuff out there, and then people devour it online on social media. Oh, God, really? See, I'm joining the dots. I've got all this. Yeah, blimey, she's dead. Vladimir Putin, he's got body doubles all over the place. There is a rumour that John Lennon actually used a body double just for shit and giggles. Because, I mean, they were the four most famous people on planet Earth. Everybody knew them. So we don't know whether that's the truth or not. I mean, we heard that Vladimir Putin had a heart attack. But I've seen some pictures of the early Vladimir Putin and the latest version of Vladimir Putin, and you think, oh, hang on a second. Now, there was a piece in the paper yesterday. This is how idiotic the mainstream media are in this country. I keep telling you, don't believe anything you read. The only thing they never get wrong is the price on the front. And they said, Vladimir Putin, he's got a Barbie. He's got a Barbie. Wasn't Vladimir Putin dancing with Digger's last partner? I can't remember her name, but the owner of the Stun and News Corp, he was dancing with a particular lady, and then all of a sudden she's off with Vladimir Putin, and now Vladimir Putin's got a new bird. I mean, is that news? I mean, it's gossip. It's not news. That's a world leader. And it's just gossip. Look, I've said to you the last few weeks, The Sun is just promulgating tittle-tattle. The front pages of The Sun, then it's not actually news, it's showbiz gossip. And they'll make it up half the time. Rebecca Brooks still working for them. I know we're dancing around a little bit, but I'm going to give you the Dan Wootton statement in full. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. Dan Wootton, his statement in full. I was brought up to trust in the English legal system, to believe in freedom, due process, natural justice and the rule of law, the right of every man or woman to a fair trial and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. But since July 2023, I was the victim of a politically motivated witch hunt through the left wing and social media, led by a hard left activist, a convicted phone hacker, a convicted extortionist, and a deranged and abusive ex who had threatened on the record to slit my throat, and previously admitted to being a psychopath with dark urges. The accusations made against me were completely spurious, lies designed to destroy my career where complainants were actuated by malice. Well, 6 months on, I have now been completely cleared in 2 investigations by the Metropolitan and Scottish police forces, who have confirmed they will be taking no further action. NFA. While I knew this would always be the outcome, the process is now the punishment, with social media acting as the executioner. Margaret Thatcher once said that if you ever get trial by media or guilt by accusation, that day freedom dies. She was right. It is a high time that all of our ancient rights were once again upheld. Chief among them, the right to be presumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law. If it falls to me to be the champion of those rights, then so be it. It is a fight I am more than willing to take up, not just for me, but for all of us. I don't know where that puts Byline Times. Some of the stories they were printing, I mean, they must have had corroborative evidence. You can't just go saying what they were saying. But Dan Wootton, who would have believed it? Dan Wootton, champion of free speech, and being proven innocent in a court of law. I mean, did you know that Elon Musk has been given the Nobel Peace Prize for his work for free speech? That's not really, that's kind of gone under the radar, but I saw that today. Elon Musk, Nobel Peace Prize for free speech. I mean, can you imagine Dan Wootton? Dan Wootton getting a Nobel Peace Prize. I was going to say something about the Sun in a minute when I talk about Steve Wright, because how can I say this? Media is a very dark and murky world. Very. You have to be very, very careful. And from the very early days of my radio career, my bosses were saying, don't dance with the devil, Adrian, because you'll always come off worse. You may have the radio and you don't necessarily have the right of reply on the radio, but don't dance with the printed media. Some of it was foul, odious, foul. Vix text, Elon Musk wants to buy Disney. I know, I saw that. And invariably, I mean, we're going to go, if we start going down that particular rabbit hole, we will end up going down a very dark route. I'm very well aware of Disney and Epstein. You know that Epstein used to run like little snorkeling, not courses, days on his island. Disney used to take kids to his island. Are you aware of that? So we could go down a very dark route. Maybe we do it at some point in the future, because again, legally, we have to be very careful. Even though it's alive, we have to be very careful. We don't want to upset the very, very powerful. I mean, look at all the underground tunnels in New York. What happened to that story then? I'm thinking about doing a video called We've Forgotten. The team and I came up with an idea months and months and months ago of actually doing reporting on the stories that just disappeared. Like, disappeared. They think we're stupid. So, Dan Wootton's innocent, as proven in a court of law. Well, no, actually, stop. He's not innocent. The police are not taking any further action. It's NFA. So that is completely different from being found innocent in a court of law. And he's banging on about innocent until found guilty. Proven guilty, Dan. Because in Scotland, it's proven. It's different. The laws are different in Scotland than England. He said it's chief among them the right to be presumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law. Proven guilty in a court of law, Dan. So he's not innocent. It's just NFA. No further action for whatever reason. And the police will have consulted with the Crown Prosecution Service. Sir Keir Starmer, Jimmy Savile. Oh no, NFA, file 13, bin. So the Crown Prosecution Service will have looked at what the police had, and they'll have said to the police, there's not... we're not going to get a conviction. So police have just gone NFA, or they may not have had any evidence whatsoever of any wrongdoing. So they've just gone NFA, mate. So let's do a bit of Steve Wright stuff to kind of lighten the mood. As Alan said, Epstein's list went a bit quiet. Adrian, I know, all this fanfare and this pomp and circumstance at the beginning of the year. It's January, so here's all the names. Where? They'd already been put all over social media. I've seen all the names, including King Charles, including Prince Andrew, including Mandy Mandelson, including some very eminent people from this side of the water. What would they be in his little black book for? Unless it's obviously Ghislaine taking people into Buckingham Palace, having a look at King Charles's throne. So let's look. I'm very well aware of what goes on in the world, the real dark stuff, and we have to be very careful. So, as I've said to you previously, about a year ago, I've been in this game for 40 years. I know some stuff that sometimes I need to have the back of my eyeballs washed. But I want to do... Let's have a quick run through, and then we'll get into of a couple of subjects, just very quick hits, and then we'll get into the warm, fuzzy, lovely stuff. Steve Wright. So, Charlie's back. Sausage fingers. He's back to work, the slacker. He met up with Rich Boy in the sixth form common room today. I mean, I don't know about you, but I always presume that kind of really famous people or powerful people are always really tall. Imagine having a prime minister that's not even cockeyed. I mean, I just look at him and I think, yeah, I know your game, but are you going to be riding the 315 in Ascot on Saturday? Charlie's back to work. Good on him. Good on him. Is it immunotherapy that he's having? I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on that they're trying to work out what kind of cancer he's got. They're saying it's definitely not cancer of the prostate. They've told us it's not. But what kind of treatment is he? Is it chemotherapy? Immunotherapy, you get like 2 doses once every couple of weeks, and that appears to be what is going on. Or have they actually caught whatever it is right at the very beginning, and they've been able to say, sir, we need to do this yesterday, and everything will be fine. But he's back to work, bless him. I'm very intrigued by what's been kicking off in the comments tonight, because that'll be all over the press in the morning. The Westminster bubble. So I thought they'd passed the resolution for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. I mean, can you imagine some of the miscreants in the Pink Palace going, "What do you mean, ceasefire? I've got loads of bombs going out there tomorrow. I need to kill more people." And Sleepy Joe, what do you mean they're going to stop using arms and armaments? How do you think the American economy is going to fare? It's all about the money. It's a banker's war. I told you that months ago. It's a banker's war. And Lindsay Hoyle, bless him. Is he going to be elbow? I'm also hearing that, just, for your premise, Matt Baker's been rushed to hospital. I've not seen it anywhere on the main wires, just on this little random news app. Matt Baker rushed to hospital. Don't know whether it's him or... I don't know about you. It just feels like everything is uncertain, everything is unsure, and everybody is coming down with illness. Whether it's lungs, heart, blood, turbo cancers. Why do you think that is? In the comments, please. Are you in the same place as me? Just a little unsure. It's 2024. We're all waking up. I mean, I say at some of the end of hang on, what's Tabloid Tracy saying? Matt Baker revealed he was admitted to hospital on Wednesday after suffering a herniated disc. Maybe they got hold of the wrong end of the stick. I just saw this alert as I literally coming on air. And he used to be a gymnast, didn't he? So maybe it's that. Bovril, talking about spike protein. Just a little aside. I don't want to go into this too deeply. But there is actually... so I went out to Peru to a wonderful, magical, amazing place called Kawsay, Kawsay. And I spoke to the owner of that, and he said, "Oh, yeah, we had a cure for all that. Yeah, when it first came out. The people of the jungle, the medicine men, they went to the government and said, we've got some plants that'll deal with that. Do you want some?" And the government went, No. They said, No. The medicine men, the forest will provide the medicine and we can give you this. And now, and the politicians didn't want anything to do with that. Oh, I wonder why. But the shaman, a very, very wise man, very, very wise and knowledgeable men. They've studied the plants in the Amazon jungle all of their lives. And I had 3 generations of shaman working with me, and one of them was, he must have been 150. He was a proper old boy. And then there was his son who was in his 50s, and then there was his son who was in his late 20s, early 30s. So you're talking about hundreds of years worth of knowledge. But they've come out and said that there are certain things that will help deal with and clean your blood of the spike protein. Are they going to allow that? Townblock Tracy, these plants, 9 foot tall, spiky, smell quite musky. So I have heard. Well, ayahuasca. Yeah, it does a bit. Everybody else that was taking it with me was a bit, I don't like that. I was like, blimey, am I the only one that likes the taste? We'll talk about that another time. But I just wanted to mention those. And James Cleverly, keep an eye on this story. Keep an eye on this story. I mean, what are these idiots on? I mean, are they eating too much sugar? Or is it cooking sherry? James, not so cleverly, has sacked David Neal. Now, you're going to go, who's he? Adrian, who's he? He's the Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. He's the boy. For the boat people, he's the boy. The Home Office claims he breached the terms of appointment and lost the confidence of the Home Secretary. Was James not so cleverly been calling him shit? Is he being offering him some Rohypnol or something. That's his MO, isn't it? James Not So Cleverly. So this David Neal had said that high-risk passengers are being allowed into the UK without security checks on private jets. He also said that a quarter of foreign care workers are abusing UK visa rules by working illegally in other industries. And James Not So Cleverly's gone, whoa! Oi, mate! I'm not very confident in you. Sling your hook. What do you mean you're not very confident in me? I haven't said anything that's... It's all facts. James! So, literally, they don't want stuff coming out that should be coming out. So, let's get into some happy, warm, fuzzy things with Steve Wright. Because it's still fairly raw, it's still fairly new, and a lot of people are saying, they still miss him. And I'm going to get to your comments, they're wonderful. I mean, just amazing. A real outpouring in the comments on all of the videos we've done about Steve Wright. But friend told me that, and I think he was there for Children in Need. He said that one year, Children in Need wanted to do it. It's a technical term. They wanted to do a live throw, which means you kind of go, hello, this is Adrian Allen, and we now go to Steve Wright in the studio. Ping, cut, Steve Wright in the studio. So that's kind of a live throw. So they wanted to do a live throw to the Steve Wright radio show. A request which kind of threw Steve a little bit, because he had to frantically go around and say to some of the staff, come on, come in the studio. When I tell you, clap. I've just remembered a great story. And so we had to get all this BBC staff in the studio so that they could, because the studio wasn't very big, had to cram in tight like sardines into the studio and whoop and applaud. All to maintain the illusion that the applause sound effect he played at the beginning of each show was real. Oh, come on. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about how live radio can go abhorrently wrong. So I worked for a radio station which shall remain nameless. You'll work out why when we get into the meat of this story. So, and I've literally just remembered it while I was talking about clapping. So these two people are very eminent in their fields. One's a very, very, very eminent journalist, and one is just very eminent. I'm not going to identify either of them. Hopefully they'll laugh. And so it was a live, they decided that they wanted that afternoon, they wanted to do a live broadcast from the Tory Party conference in Blackpool. So it was like, book hotels, get across there, live link, engineers working out everything, so that they just sat there with a microphone each, just talking about and describing, because it's radio, what they could see, where they were, what was going on, and then, talking to various interviewees. And it was great radio, fabulous radio, except Margaret Thatcher made this huge entrance. And the whole place went mad. I mean, you're talking 84, 85. She was still in her pomp. And the Tory Party conference, she walked in, and from what they were describing, she was kind of wafting down some stairs, or she was walking onto stage in the Tory Party conference. And then one of them, I don't know whether this was a setup, or whether they were egging each other on to be naughty on radio. So it was definitely a code brown. And one of them said, "Oh, it's Margaret Thatcher receiving the Tory Party clap." Silence. I mean, the place where the Tory Party conference was taking part, I mean, all the applause and going mad and going nuts. It was Margaret Thatcher walking on the stage, and there was silence from the two people in the booth that were meant to be commentating. And then the other one went, "Oh yeah, she's definitely receiving the Tory Party clap." And then it got naughty schoolboyish. There was like little titters, little giggles. And the other one went, I bet she's surprised at the amount of Tory party clap she's getting. I would pay good money to have a recording of that, because it was, I was, as a young guy trying to get into radio, I was listening, mesmerised, going, how can they say that? They've said she's got, can they get away with that? I think the bosses just went, shh, say nothing. So nobody noticed. Nobody noticed. You see, live radio is dangerous unless you've got somebody who knows what they're doing. And these two do. That's the thing. So I don't know whether it was kind of a setup to see if they could get away with it, see if they wouldn't get the sack. Saying that Margaret Thatcher had the Tory party clap. Live radio. Very few can do it. I mean, some can play tunes and go next, next, next. Oh, this is, that was, that's, you know, pop and prattle, top 40 radio. But when you're doing live speech radio, it's dangerous. Anything can happen in the next half hour, said a TV show once. So I want to direct your attention to something that, well, most people missed last week. You know, the story of Steve Wright and his passing, and everyone being quite shocked at the story. But the Sun kind of did something that my skin went cold when I saw the headlines. The Sun ran the headline, BBC killed Steve Wright story on its front page. Now I get that. But what everybody missed was that they were laying the blame of Steve Wright's death at the feet of the BBC. What everybody missed was it was on the anniversary of Caroline Flack's death. The Sun, man, they would have known. They would have known. And on the anniversary of Caroline Flack's death, I said the BBC killed Steve Wright. See, most people missed it. Completely missed it. So I will say to you that DJs, as much as they were and are still possibly the butt of jokes, although they're much hipper and cooler nowadays, they were much, 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 much more talented in the 70s and 80s. It was a completely different game. As much as the Sun really should know better, but they have form to that newspaper. But DJs, as much as they are a butt of jokes, maybe, they are national treasures. I've told you the Jimmy Young story and Chris Tarrant's story. Always appears to be in a Chinese restaurant, Chinese takeaway. But all I'll say is that they're national treasures and should be respected as such. I don't know whether you've listened to radio in your youth, whether it was in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, up to Chris Evans doing the breakfast show on BBC Radio 1. They're national treasures, and I'm sure some of these old boys are not long for falling off their perch. But it's when these national treasures, who were part of our growing up, part of our daily lives, whether it was our parents or our siblings that would have the radio on and possibly they were on in the background, let's just give them a bit of respect for helping us grow up, really. Steve Wright wasn't given that, although the outpouring of love, as I will read out with these your comments, it was just a thing of beauty, a thing of absolutely stunning beauty. So let's get into some of the comments, because there are many of them. And in fact, before I get to the comments, I'm going to read you a story. It's not a bedtime story, but it made my hair stand on end. And this has to be anonymous. Adrian, the BBC radio lot? Back in the mid-2000s, I and a colleague went to the BBC radio management of the time and highlighted very clearly that a certain dance DJ was cheating the public and industry with some total unimpartial activity on a BBC show. We provided clear and precise previous show logs to support the meeting. Now, the DJ had an expensive personal contract earning him a huge advance payment for a rolling compilation CD. The compilation CD was barely selling 10,000 copies with a now defunct music label, financed by a major international record company, who were really, in essence, buying direct access to a BBC radio DJ for their future releases. This said, DJ had personally persuaded this label, run by a former managing director for the aforementioned major international company, to sign a cover dance release of an updated old pop song, which had no future potential artist development. It was a featured bygone artist of no real dance music credibility. The said DJ played the release 10 weeks in a row on his show in the vital first hour of the programme, when he had the largest potential audience. He made it his best new tune of the week and also interviewed the producer on his pre-weekend show, something the DJ very, very rarely did for an unknown producer, unless they were an obvious new global talent. Then the said DJ doorstepped an important daytime DJ and playlist member personally early one morning outside the station, asking them to put the release forward for an extremely valuable playlist slot, something the DJ had never done before for a new release. The record was given a coveted A-list position on the station, normally 20 spins a week. It became a hit and actually achieved a number one with the major company's massive sales machine, the same company financing the big advance to the DJ, pushing the release hard to national retail, Woolies, Our Price, etc. There's no profit in the sales of singles, but lots to be earned in compilation deals domestically and internationally. Adrian, I knew the game then inside out, with the success of both certain artists, and I'm not going to mention the artists, they're big international names, so that I don't identify the person, the writer. The radio DJ, his conduct stunk. The record quickly disappeared. The next release by the producer, without the previous coercing, was ignored, and that producer never ever had another hit. But the crux of me mentioning this was that they, the BBC, the management of the time, never did anything about the clear misuse for personal gain by this DJ. They in fact told him, the DJ, about the meeting and refused to ask the major international record label for a copy of the DJ's compilation contract, which would clearly reveal the motive for the support of the said release, and that they themselves had been manipulated by this particular person, who stood to substantially gain financially from the single's success. And he, the said DJ, could continue with the next part of his contract and the forthcoming advances. In terms of impartiality, it is the BBC's responsibility to the licence-paying public to fully investigate any or all misuse of position, especially if financial gain is suspected and very obvious. I know this personally from receiving the BBC Code of Conduct myself, some 50 pages from Greg Dyke when he was then BBC Director General. It's a BBC rule book, if you will, that every BBC contracted employee, direct or freelance, as I was then, had to study and strictly adhere to. I've had that BBC bollocks on my mind for 18 years. This week, with the terrible sad passing of Steve Wright, the best British radio DJ ever, it leaves a very cold reminder of the publicly funded corporation's potential for making huge, impactful errors. They took away, that's Steve Wright, they took away his purpose in life for no reason. Like Terry Wogan, Steve Wright could have continued inspiring other broadcasters and DJs well into his later years. Oh, by the way, the person mentioned above is still earning a large contract with the BBC, as paid for by the British public, and was often given a large endorsement by other BBC presenters prior to the start of his programme. Yet he is not fit to polish the shoes of the mighty righty in talent or ethics. There is so much more the British licensing paying public do not know. Rest in peace, Steve Wright. I loved every minute of working with you as a support DJ on your gigs, and always really enjoyed your shows. Make of that what you will. Rich says, and thank you for this, Rich. Rich says, Adrian, in 2000 I did some work at the detention centre opposite Heathrow. It took in people detained for many offences occurring at the airport. An officer told me that the hardest thing for them was finding places to deport some of the arrivals. This was because their home countries wouldn't accept them back. The big issue here is a failure and unwillingness for this country to deport illegals and people that commit offences in this country whilst here on visas and permits. The Home Office needs to be let alone to do its job and not to be hamstrung by lefty types that delay and stop deportation flights. These people who commit offences are not conducive to the good of this country and should be booted out. Adrian, can you touch on the Assange case on Wednesday? It's a story I've followed for years. Richard, I'd love to. I'm not sure. I'm monitoring it, and I think the best time to talk about it is when there has been a determination by the courts. I do hope that Assange is let free and he will not be deported. But knowing the way that the putrid, awful, horrible American political process goes, I can barely hold my breath. Let me just get rid of that. Thank you to Debbie75. Debbie says, hi Adrian, I just caught up with this live. This is from Live 58 on Sunday. Really enjoyed it. Whilst mentioning the late, great Steve Wright, you mentioned Steve Allen. I regularly listened to him for years on LBC. Even went to see a live show of his, and then, having moved away from London, I stopped but started again early last year. And by listening to podcasts of his shows, and then 17th of February last year, he left the show and station without any prior notice. Would never listen to that woke station again. After doing some digging, I saw talk of a payoff of his recently signed new contract and an NDA. I was thinking this couldn't be for more than a year and that hopefully Steve could go elsewhere or do his own podcast. I've only been able to follow him on Twitter since his departure. Could you please do a video about this in the near future, please? Thanks, Deb. Yeah, sure. Steve Allen is obviously no relation, but he's one of my favourite broadcasters. Worked with him at LBC. Steve was always very generous of spirit, always. But as I've said before, radio management are a weird and odd beast. Quite why Steve went, it's not for me to speculate, but the manner of which he went was not becoming for LBC, which is a giant of a station. Although some programmes are losing quite a bit audience. I'm not sure the transition from sort of mid-range to lefty woke station is going to help them any. I mean, I always wish them well because I look back with great fondness working there for, blimey, 6-7 years. First started working for them 2003. But yeah, I'll do a bit of digging. I've tried contacting Steve over the years, but obviously I'm not working at LBC anymore. So I'm probably an annoyance. So I would hazard a guess, the way I know radio, is just keep monitoring the situation. Steve's too good to not be on the radio. Far too good. That is a man that literally had the best performing radio show in this country at that time of day, and he literally just walked in the studio and did it. No props, no nothing, no. He just went in and talked. I mean, his theme tune, The Bitch's Back, was wonderful. Wonderful. If you've never heard Steve Allen, try and source some of his radio performances. They are fabulous. Fabulous. And told it like it was. Just didn't muck about. Here, have this. Some people got very upset at him. I loved it. All this woke nonsense. He was just telling truths. If it upset people, oh yeah, man. This is life. And I would have supported Steve in any which way that I could. But I do hope he's well. I do hope that the things that he was dealing with, he's no longer dealing with, as in health matters. I do hope he's fabulously healthy. He's fabulously wealthy. And I hope life is treating him wonderfully. So Debbie, I will do. Maybe at some point in the future for you. Robert Francis, Adrian, YouTube is playing up. You don't say, Robert. We had to come off the Wi-Fi earlier. I've posted and not updated. So what's been going on? So some of your posts, Robert, weren't making it on. I think, or weren't making it into the comment section of some of the videos. I think if you post like links and stuff, the algorithm just deletes stuff. So I hope you got it sorted, Robert. Please be in touch if the same thing is happening, and I'll see if we can help or sort something for you. The most recent Ranty Rolex, Scotty's Retro channel said, Adrian, corrupt is the right word. Yesterday, I received a response from the letter I sent to the Prime Minister. Totally disgusting. Completely had enough now. Scotty's Retro channel, I will be in touch. Normally on a Sunday and a Wednesday, I don't interact with many people because I'm working so hard on doing stuff for this, but I will be in touch. I'm not going to elucidate. I'm not going to tell you what the story is, but it's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone. So, Scotty's Retro channel, let's get it sorted. Cliff Wilson, Adrian, subjects attacking subjects. Perhaps the second in line will make a comment on the recent attack. I don't know whether Williams put himself into hot water, but the media are turning on him. Because he's gone, well, hang on a second. We need to have a ceasefire in Gaza now. For humanitarian reasons. And if one of the oldest bloodlines in the world is saying, hang on, lads, we need to have a bit of a pause here for humanitarian reasons, the world is listening. Thank you, Cliff. Always good to hear from you. Some of the comments on the sniffy Joe Biden, Joe Ferguson says, oh, Adrian, dear God, how can you seriously fall for every one of these debunked conspiracy theories from QAnon and fixed news? Adrian, I'm embarrassed for you. Oh, thank you, Joe. Really appreciate that. I don't fall for conspiracy theories. I don't. I've been given stories that are, I mean, when I was being told, made me feel violently sick. I'll say this to you, Joe, just very gently, sniffy Joe Biden. I wouldn't go anywhere near him. Him and his son. His son's come out today and said, oh, that special, that was doing an investigation. Well, he seen some sawdust and he said it was crack cocaine. Under Biden, he couldn't make it up. Now, I'll ask you a question. If you're a parent of a child or grandparent to a grandchild, would you do everything within your power to protect them? Would you do what Sniffy Joe's doing? Protecting his son? Special counsel. No, he got mixed up. He thought that sawdust was crack cocaine. So, I don't buy into some of the conspiracies, unless you're a CIA operative, Joe. But just watch America eating itself. America is losing its soul. It's not the power it once was, because there's evil amongst it. Political evil amongst it. And what they're doing to Donald Trump, irrespective of his political leanings, whether he's left, right, up, down, sky blue, pink with yellow dots on, whether he's an elephant or a horse or a giraffe. They're trying to bankrupt that man so he can't run for president. They are pulling every single stunt. This is the political class in America. They're pulling every single stunt because the deep state knows that if Trump gets into the presidential office, then the war in the Middle East will be over. He'll stop it. He won't sign the arms and armaments deals that amount to hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars. And who's paying for all this? The taxpayer. They don't care. Trump's in the way. I don't wish ill of anyone, including Sniffy. But America, the most powerful country on the planet, is now eating itself. Thank you, Joe. Steve O'Neill. Adrian, well done. This was the Steve Wright, the Aftermath video. Well done to Adrian Allen and this outstanding video. It felt like I was listening to a broadcasting whistleblower. I was born on Teesside and remember how colossal Mark Page was doing the Radio Tees breakfast show. Shame he messed up his life doing what he did later on. He started to mess around with... it's interesting what Adrian said about Radio Tees getting messed up. When Graham Robb started doing Late On, he started to mess around with the My Top 3 Listeners slot. First, he insisted on ballads only, then ballads by certain artists, and it was obvious he was just playing records that he liked rather than what the listeners wanted to hear. Big mistake, according to Stephen. As for radio broadcasting in this country being dead, Adrian is absolutely spot on. There is a few stations, notably Boom Radio, which are in the last chance saloon of creative, entertaining radio. The trouble is that even if there are some promising DJs with potential to be top quality presenters on the radio, they don't really stand a cat and hell's chance of making it. Once again, many thanks to Adrian for an excellent video. You're most welcome, Stephen O'Neill. Thank you very much for the comment. Somebody messaged me, and forgive me because I was going to bring that comment to this live tonight. And somebody questioned me stating that Mark Page had a 93% reach and was being quite facetious in the comment. And if they're watching tonight and you know who you are, I will say this to you. If you're aware of ABC1s and C2DEs, demographics, age, earning capacity, if you're aware of all of that, then this makes it even more special. Because Mark Page had 93% reach of the 15 pluses. So it was 15, 24, 24, 35, 35, 45, 44, 55. It's all banded up in demographics by your earning capacity, by your age. And Mark Page had 93% in that area of all radio listening from 15 plus. Not the kids, not the babies. Stop being stupid. And how do I know? Because the then program controller of Radio Tees, a guy called Dave Jameson, said, Adrian, let me show you how to work out these figures. And he showed me how to read the data. This is back in 83, 84. And I saw those figures with my own eyes. Not making this up. And there's one thing you should know by now. I don't lie, especially when it's about my specialist subject. I'll try and find it and I'll use it on Sunday in the next live. Ian Wantling says, Adrian, Steve Wright died because the BBC management took away the oxygen from his life when they dumped him from his afternoon show. Thank you, Ian. John Leach. Steve had a heart bypass soon after losing his show, Adrian. That indicates it may have been a heart issue, but I'm sure we will soon know. Or the coroner will say what caused Steve's untimely passing. Because it has to go to the coroner, and it'll take a little while. Could take months yet. But his son was... I saw a 2-page article in one of the dailies the other day, and his son said, oh yeah, I was coming across. He hadn't been to the palace for his MBE, so I was going to come across and be with my dad, Tom, his son, be with my dad, simply to look after him. So he must have been ailing in some way, and his son Tom must have been aware. But we'll find out. It's not going to be kept a secret. We will find out. The only thing that thing that I don't like about all of this is the hand wringing that's gone on. Like, people have to be so emotional, and the hand wringing by some of the BBC presenters. I don't know whether they're doing it because they feel they have to. The optics, they have to look as if they're caring about Steve Wright. Don't know, but the hand wringing. Stephen Wildsmith. Hi, Stephen. Adrian, it's basically DJs that were a treat to listen to. Most, unfortunately, are in the past than the present. So we could also consider Adrian Just, Dave Jensen, Peter Powell. I agree with you. There are some. They're old boys now. They're in their twilight. Some of them still broadcasting, some of them not. Some of them are just doing it for the love of it now, for the kick. But I've said we need to revere them now before they shuffle off. Some massive names. I mean, Wogan's gone. If you look at Radio 2, they like Johnny Walker. Johnny's not very well. There are others that are not very well that I am aware of. And I think we should revere them now, rather than once they go and everybody go, oh, that's a shame. It's a shame that we're not revering them. I mean, they were the part of our lives. We grew up with them. As I say, I don't know whether it was your siblings or your parents, whichever radio station you chose to listen to, whether it was local commercial or local BBC. It could be any radio station. There's a whole pantheon of radio stations that you could have listened to as a youngster. James says, Adrian, I loved Steve's show for 40 years on radios 1 and 2, so I am devastated. He felt like an amazing friend that I never met. I know we don't know exactly what happened to him yet, but I can't help thinking that if his afternoon show hadn't been taken off him, he may have been at Radio 2 when he became ill and possibly have been helped rather than on his own at home with no assistance. We will never know, I suppose. Thank you, Steve. That's from James. Very good point, James. I know people are asking, why didn't he go across to Greatest Hits Radio? Possibly because he wanted to stay with the BBC. It had been his home for 45 years. Didn't really know anything else. And carried weight at the BBC. He'd had some dalliance between Radio 1 and Radio 2 with commercial radio. I don't think it went the way that he wanted, and he couldn't really do what he wanted to do in commercial radio, simply because there are different parameters within commercial radio that you have to adhere to. John Webster says, Adrian, I doubt if Steve's shoes will ever be filled. I agree with you, John, completely. Annie Watt. Evening, Annie. Radio 2 used to feel like having friends round. Now it's like meeting a bunch of strangers. I don't listen, Annie Watt. I don't. I won't subject myself to it. As I say, there's one or two on that station that I've sacked previously, and I didn't like their style of broadcasting, didn't think they were any good. And others, they're passable. But you know, I've got I live my life by principles. And I would never, ever go behind my wife's back. Ever. To start sexting a model. What that idiot is doing on the radio, I have no idea. His wife might be the queen of the BBC. But yeah, filthy. No. That's why I don't listen. How can I listen to somebody that I don't believe has any principle? sexting her. What was he, page 3 model or something? Everywhere. He was cast out into the wilderness, and he comes back. Suzanne Boos, I think it is. Apologies, Suzanne, if I've mispronounced your second name. Well said about the BBC, Adrian. They need a real taste of life. Let them finance themselves and let's see how they get on. My goodness. They'll actually have to listen to their customers and pay attention to listening numbers for once. Suzanne says, I loved Steve Wright, grew up with him, actually had a tear in my eye when the news broke. A professional who knew his listeners and actually showed up to his work, unlike Zoe Ball. Constant stand-ins. How many holidays does she get? And we're paying her how much? I've just made a note saying, Adrian, Mrs. Brown in the bathroom with the commode. Not quite sure where I made that. TBT. Ian Aspinall. Adrian, why didn't Greatest Hits Radio approach him to work there? I mean, there was Boom Radio, but you have to understand that the financial pie is getting less and less and less in radio. And Steve would have had more chance. And I'm sure they would have tickled him and said, look, we're going to create these new radio stations right up your street, Steve. We'd want you to be on the digital radio station doing afternoons, or he never liked doing breakfast. I saw an interview with, I saw a channel, and I'm trying to remember the channel's name. It was a great video. You must go and watch it. It's a YouTube channel, and it's called, I'll tell you on Sunday. But there's a great little interview there. TV Tablock Tracy, Rihanna Sugden. Oh yes, that was her. And this channel on YouTube had a great little interview between Chris Moyles and Steve Wright. And Steve said, I'm not a guy that gets up at 4:30 in the morning. I just can't do it. I can't fire on all cylinders. I'm an afternoon guy. Because obviously Chris Moyles wanted to do the Radio 1 breakfast show. It was his pinnacle of his career. So I've just remembered. Search out the Bad Wolf Project. Bad Wolf Project on YouTube has a great video there of a couple of the Radio 1 breakfast show guys, but Steve Wright in particular. Chris Moyles interviewing him, and that's where he admits, look, I'm not great at getting out of bed. I'm not great at getting out of bed at 4:30 in the morning and doing a breakfast show. So he didn't really enjoy doing the Radio 1 breakfast show. Thank you, Ian. Just informed. Very clever. Many folks don't realise that the BBC operates multiple private businesses like BBC Productions and BBC Studios, making millions of pounds. So let them go entirely private and stop pestering the citizens for money. I'm with you, Justin. I don't see why we have to pay the licence fee now, because everybody should be judged on their merit instead of, and I've told you this before, I know of someone that used to produce one package a week for the breakfast show and was getting 50 grand a year. That's like a 4 or 5 minute piece to go in the breakfast show once a week. Had to source the story, admittedly, but £1 grand a week for doing that. How's the BBC for you? Awash with money for certain people. Deborah Rower says, Adrian, when you heard Steve's iconic voice, you felt everything was all right with the world. I'm not alone when I say we're going to miss him so much. R.I.P. Steve. We love you. I agree with you, Deborah. I used to, my mum and dad obviously lived in the northeast, and I was living and working in Edinburgh. And whenever I used to drive down the A1, which normally took 3.5 hours-ish, I'd make sure it was between 1 and 4 so I could listen. Sometimes at the interviews, but just his vibe, just the professionalism. Paul Durkee, Adrian, as someone who used to tune in to BBC Radio a lot, that's both national and local, they no longer produce anything I want to listen to. BBC Wales used to have a wonderful mix of presenters and local coverage of rugby and cricket. It's all gone now. I don't listen to the BBC Radio at all for anything. Cheers, Paul. Charlie B. They've gone for the people who grew up listening to 90s music, hence Vernon Kay. Absolutely awful music. I agree, but have they gone sort of Cool Britannia? Are they playing, you know, the Oasises and the Blurs and the kind of cool Britannia stuff? Or, I mean, I'm not one to get away with country music. Unless it's the Eagles or Steely Dan, but or the Charlie Daniels band, Devil Went Down to Georgia. There was a song. I just can't. I don't want to listen to rave shite. I don't want to listen to stuff that you've got to be off your tits on. You've got to be off your tits on gear to enjoy. I want stuff that's clever. I want, you know, the Squeeze poetry. I want the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and I want great, great, great artists. Not Joe Dolce, shut up your face. To Margot Welland, I'm joking. To Margot Welland, Adrian, BBC Two was my go-to station from breakfast with Terry, then Chris on drive home with Mayo. Sorry, breakfast with Terry, then Chris Evans, drive home with Mayo, and Sunday mornings with Steve. R.I.P. Since COVID, I will not listen anymore. And now I wake up with Heart. I used to work on Heart. JJ O'Neill. Other than Steve's Sunday love songs, I have boycotted Radio 2 and pretty much all BBC output since he was let go from his afternoon slot. Steve had been a constant daily part of my life for the past 30 to 40 years with his amazing radio shows, a safe refuge from whatever else was going on in the world. Like many others, I'm sure, I was devastated to hear of his passing. He felt like a friend, almost part of the family. Whenever I missed a show, I would stream it on catch-up. Luckily, I found a website with over 140 of his shows archived and have been listening to these for the past few days, and they still bring a huge smile to my face. Listening to them, it's hard to believe he's gone. However, I now play something worthwhile to listen to during my commute and will play them and play them and play them to myself between 3 and 5 like the good old days. R.I.P. Steve, a true entertainer and radio legend. You will be sorely missed by us all. I was going to say that the BBC has a facility, and maybe they will do this with the new station. It's depending on contracting and payments, but the BBC has an archive, a digital archive of all the radio shows. So my BBC radio shows, I think, have all been digitally archived. And the BBC have been doing this for years and years and years. So my David Icke interview on the BBC should be somewhere archived. My Ron Jeremy interview. I mean, I was doing some real left field interviews on my late night show on the BBC. No, the wonder they got rid of me. I was too much for them. Too much. To Scopex, Adrian. After the Beeb sacked Steve from his prime-time afternoon slot, I turned off Radio 2 for the last time, replacing him with a total unknown. I've heard him, and he frankly is very amateur compared to Steve. Then they sack Ken Bruce. Not sure they sacked Ken. I think he walked. But the BBC were very, very brassed off at him for walking. And he's being paid more. I mean, go figure. Somebody offers you more money. Are you going to stay where you are? Or are you going to go for more money? Why not? That's the name of the game. You know, you're selling your time for as much as you can. And whomever you're trying to organise the contract with, negotiate the contract with, they're trying to get you as cheaply as possible. That's the way of life. That's the way of work. So if Ken Bruce has got a lovely pay rise to go to Greatest Hits Radio, good on it. Scopex continues. The BBC seems like it's cutting its own throat by losing listeners and viewers after the Top Gear fiasco. Have you seen the rumour this week, Scopex? The three boys might be coming back with Top Gear. It's too much of a money earner for the BBC worldwide. They'll bring it back. Like the chap below says, my car radio was tuned to Radio 2. Now it's Greatest Hits Radio or Classic FM. Frankly, it's time the government took away all this power the BBC has. Stop the licence fee and make them have adverts. It's become a dinosaur corporation running on ancient, out-of-date rules. I think the last decent DJ that's left is Tony Blackburn. Nothing can replace the great Steve Wright. Wow. Ray Collion, just discovered your channel, Adrian. What a breath of fresh air to hear someone speaking the truth. R.I.P. Righty. Keep on rocking, you serious jock. Oh, wasn't Friday afternoons wonderful? Serious jocking. No G. I loved it. I'm a bit of a dance boy when the mood takes me. And I used to love that little Friday afternoon 45 minutes. I'd get brassed off if somebody would call me on the telephone. I'd be like, look, I'm waiting for a call. They're going to call before 5 o'clock. So stop and I'll call you back. Just to listen to because it was my youth. To Jason, I missed the DJ Kenny Everett myself. Interesting, Jason. Kenny was transformed when he went to TV. I mean, his Capital Radio shows. BBC. Again, I've met weak managers within the BBC. I can vouch for weak managers within the BBC. They don't like people with talent. They don't like people who can, as I've said before, it takes a strong manager to deal with strong creativity. And they just back off. And in the end, they get rid of people thinking, oh, just for an easy life. No, it's about listeners. Yeah, Pratt. Radio is not about the presenters. It's not about the format. It's about how many listeners you can have listening to your radio station at any one time. End of. End of. So these talentless morons that get into management and then start saying to the talent, we want you to do this and we want you to do that. Foxtrot Oscar. From Carol. Thank you, Carol. Millions of us left when they asked Steve. Disgraceful how his show was the highest at the height of its popularity and he was adored. He saw us through COVID and the darkest of times. Then they dumped him. They didn't listen to the angry feedback. Now they're gushing all over him. I hope they're finished, says Carol. Edward Jones. Adrian, I've listened to Steve Wright for most of my life. He's been there through a lot of hard times where my family have died. This man made me smile again and then was replaced with someone awful, to be polite. I will never listen to Radio 2 ever again. That seems to be the zeitgeist. That's the feeling from virtually everybody in all these comments, just in different ways, saying exactly the same thing, but in just slightly different ways. Steve Montgomery. Adrian, absolutely agree, my friend. I remember the great days when you were on Radio City. All the great characters, charm and cheeky personality have gone. Tony Schnell is doing mid-mornings on BBC Radio Merseyside. Oh, my golfing partner, Tony Schnell. If anybody bumps into him, please send him my regards. What a boy. Tony Schnell. Brilliant. I also, I hear that another ex-Radio City colleague of mine, John Jessup, is not very well at the moment, and I do wish John all the very best. He's a character and a half. Many stories to tell, but he used to follow me on Radio City. John, if you manage to hear this or see this, I wish you well. My friend, I wish you very well. What else did... Oh yes. Tony Schnell still has a cheeky side to him. I hanker for the likes of the great Phil Easton and the Great Eastern Express. If you're not from Liverpool, you probably won't realise what we're talking about. And all the fabulous shock jock stuff you did. Radio broadcasting of the highest order, in my humble opinion. Oh yes, I broke a couple of ribs more than once, crying with laughter at your antics. Speak soon. We used to chat occasionally on the phone during those days. Great to see you doing this on YouTube. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, we'll have a catch up soon. Peter Clark. I was genuinely shocked when I heard that Steve Wright had passed away 2 days ago. I even remember him on Radio 210. Wow, TVR. So very sad. As for Radio 2 itself, particularly Helen Thomas, I'll just leave it there. Bring back the big L, Radio London. In my opinion, from 1967 to 1969, Radio 1 was effectively Radio London without the commercials. I've watched 2 of your videos, Adrian, and I've really enjoyed them. Thank you. Thank you, Peter. And I love the comments. Please, as much as you can, comment. And I tend to read them out for context, and that's how I answer some of the bits and pieces that's going on. Another New Zealander is, as Lynn Turner still in the body of the Kirk tonight, Glenn Lilly said, well said, Adrian. Great post, Glenn from New Zealand. I've got probably about 10 minutes or so left. Mrs. Allen probably thinks I've divorced her. Christopher Tripp was shocked to hear the passing of Steve Wright. I used to listen to his afternoon show on Radio 1 and 2. I used to like Serious Jocking, No G, on a Friday, Christopher, and all these other features that were on the show. What the BBC has done to its older presenters on national and local is a disgrace. They should be ashamed of themselves. I've been listening to Radio Caroline for the last couple of years. Great music and presenters. Wow, is Caroline still going? Wow. I'll have to search that out just for a bit of Anna Racking. Thank you, Christopher. Sue Bennison. Adrian, I grew up with Radio Tees and Mark Page. You are giving the greatest insight. Awesome. Thanks. You're most welcome, Sue. Oh, I've got loads of stories. But it's pointless kind of just giving you too much, because then it'll sicken you. But I'll drop you little morsels. To Jedediah. Adrian, Steve Wright may have sounded good on the radio, but he'd been in poor health for a number of years. A decade ago, he looked obese and a mess and had let himself go. His brother said it was lifestyle choices which was his downfall, and I believe he is right. Steve's diet was unhealthy. Other things, like him losing his afternoon show, may not have helped, or the death of his ex-wife, but I don't believe it was those things. Steve hadn't looked after himself over the years. The irony is that his brother, because Steve has a brother, is a nutritionist. Thank you, Jedediah. Dr. Drott says, Adrian, I love the Johnny Walker show. Great shows in the 70s. I like Steve Wright, but was a bit too USA for me. Ken Bruce was the top man for me in recent years. I also liked the Radio Luxembourg Tony Prince show. Yeah, I remember Tony, the royal ruler. It faded in and out on the radio. Yeah, but we still stayed with it. We did, even when it went to nothing. You were like, oh, that was a good song. I was really enjoying that. And then come charging back. I remember hearing, can you remember the song Bang Bang by the Scot? I can see him in my head, but I can't remember his name. B.A. Robertson. So B.A. Robertson, Bang Bang, was played through the whole of the summer one year on Radio Luxembourg. They got the exclusive and they went for it big time. And it was playing through the whole of the summer. And so I started talking to, I was mid-teens, I don't think I'd left school at that point. But at the youth club, I was saying, look, this song, it's massive, it's massive, it's massive. And they were like, what song? Where from? And all of a sudden, because Luxembourg had been playing it so often, the rest of the radio industry cottoned on. It was a massive song. B.A. Robertson, Bang Bang, was it 79? See, good old days. So Dr. Drop was saying these DJs were part of our lives in those days. Rubbish radio now. It's just box ticking and a lack of quality groups and singers. Like everything now, it seems bad. Or are we just old farts? Speak for yourself. On Lifting the Veil of UK Radio, I've got a couple of sheets left. I'll do these and then we'll call it a day. Terry Wookford says, Adrian, was the Beautiful South cover Dream a Little Dream, 1995? I talked in this particular video about what we did in the background as head of music at Rock FM and the focus groups that we used to use. Don't think it was. I think it might have been... I should have written this down. Everybody's Talking. I think it might have been that one. Because 95 was a bit too late. I went back as head of music in 93. And then I was away. Where did I go to next? A couple of years later. So it might have been Everybody's Talking, which is a great, great, great radio song. Terry Wookford says, Jackie Abbott's voice on that song, Dream a Little Dream. Shivers up and down the spine. Thank you, Terry. Kim Harmer. Oh, I just love you, Adrian. Thank you, you're wrongin'. To Forza Velo. Oh, how I miss Stu Allen on Key 103. Up until the wee small hours, listening religiously. Not sure, but I think it was called Sold Out. Oh, Stu Allen, what a great presenter. I mean, a huge name in Manchester. I think we did a couple of interviews at EMI Records once. Great lad. Great lad. Loved his company. Peckerdecker. What great information about radio. Thank you, Adrian. And it's fascinating how tastes develop. And because of technology, we now have more choices. Why be limited to only 20 songs on the Ghetto Blaster? At this moment, here in sunny Haringey, North London village, I am reading Doc Savage whilst listening to 1930s Egyptian music. Terrestrial media, unfortunately, is kaput. There's a whole world of talented artists. Thanks to the internet, we have access. Stay happy, everyone. Thank you, Pekka Decker. I'm not sure I've been to Egypt. I've been to Cairo and various bits and pieces, which I will regale you with at some point. But I'm not sure their music was to my taste. But, you know, that's why not everybody's the same. It's to your own taste. Me, if there could be... Don't like deep soul, but if there was kind of like American AOR, American orientated rock with a bit of dance stuff, not as far as disco, not as far as deep soul, but just, you know, stuff. Great radio songs. We should... I know Boom Radios is run by a dear friend of mine. And I would love to go back on the radio. I would, but not some of the radio stations that are a bit pants. Who knows what the future holds? Parzival Phoenix used to listen to Adrian late night phone in the late 90s. Absolutely loved it. Oh, Parzival Phoenix. Thank you very much for that. I'm not looking for people to blow smoke on me backside, but it's nice to know that some of the people that used to listen to my phone-ins or some of my music shows, because I've worked for virtually every single group in every major city in the UK, including Scotland and Wales. Had the best time. Radio was just the best. To Karen Rogers, Adrian, if it's who I think it is, they pulled a similar stunt with Alan Wright. Was that BBC Cleveland, as it was then? I'm sure that was Alan. No, it's not. It's somebody else. But there was some utter silliness at BBC Cleveland. I'm very well aware of that. Thank you, Karen. Pie Trixie Bell. Radio isn't the same anymore. Too many adverts and talking. Not enough good music. I know. And the challenge is for the head of music. The head of music should know what the decided audience for that radio station is doing. Where they're doing it. How they're doing it. Why they're doing it. If you know your audience, you can just play them any kind of music and the audience will love it. But they're not doing that now. It's just some database where the presenters hit next. They've got nothing to say because they don't know what to say. They're not personalities, or even though they like to think they are. And don't get me started on phone-ins. They've killed it in this country. They've killed it. Everybody's gone to YouTube. That's why I'm here. To Scotty's 2023. Adrian, do local BBC radio stations keep back catalogues of radio shows? For example, 1980. I was invited to appear on a programme back then. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Scotty's 2023. I'm not sure about 1980, but I'm absolutely certain that the last 20 years, the BBC have archived all of their radio shows. But Global Gazette TV said, contact BBC Archives. Don't know how you do that, but if you can find them, Scotty's 2023, go and have a word. Ask them. If you know the radio station and the time, they should be able to drag it out of their archive. Fingers crossed for you. John Webster again. Hi, Adrian. Can radio for the masses be saved? I like your idea of BBC regional stations. Radio doesn't know what it wants to be. Radio doesn't know whether it wants to be a digital broadcasting. It doesn't, because remember, we had DAB. It was going to be CD quality radio back in the 80s. 40 years later, hello? So, So the UK follows pretty much what America does. So the big stars on American radio are the speech broadcasters, because top 40 radio has died a very ignominious death in the last 40 years in America. We're at that point now where speech is going to be the way. But now we've got YouTube. I'm able to do this on YouTube, and we've got people who will go across to X and try and do the same. Have you seen the latest thing from Alex Jones? Saying he's Bill Hicks. Not sure. I think that's a misstep, Alex. Or if any of your teams watching. I know adrianallen.com was, this would have been 2000. Alex Jones people used to visit my website because there was some quite contentious stuff on there. Still have the data. For Schofield, the hush money, we'll do this and then we'll call it a day. Rambo, loving the channel, mate. Was this what happened at Real Radio? Can't remember what I said. I know he suddenly disappeared and the stud muffin was running the show for a few nights. Oh, in Cardiff. That is a whole new story for a whole new video. But Rambo, I think we just might. I think if you look at the radio playlist that I have on here, me and the stud muffin, some of the Real Radio stuff is here on the radio playlist. And the one where the stud muffin and I got locked out of the radio station. I thought I told you to bring the keys. I thought you were bringing the keys. Well, I haven't got the keys. Have you got the keys? No, I've not got the keys. We're standing outside the front door. I think somebody drove past and bipped her on and shouted, "Oh, your daddy now then." I'll explain that in another video. But I did have the best fun on Real Radio in South Wales. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. I was on air for 9/11. The bosses, Adrian, we're not sure if we're going to put you on air tonight. What do you mean? One of the biggest stories in history, and you're not allowing me to do my phoning. I'm not sure what you'll say. What do you mean, what I'll say? Well, it's a bit dangerous. I said, oh, here, just shut up, man. I'm going on. So we took a live feed from and this is right at the very early days of the internet and being able to kind of join things up. But we had an American radio station and we were rebroadcasting it across South Wales while I was taking some calls. It was fly by your seat of your pants, but it was 9/11. I mean, still, it's one of the biggest stories in our collective history. Thank you, Rambo. D. Gralac Rowe. Adrian, I guess he may have a lot to hide. This is Philip Schofield. Apropos, is his brother all right in prison? No idea, thankfully. Marcia Toms, good to see you, Marcia. Thank you for commenting. Adrian, it is absolutely disgraceful to be paid off like that. We're talking about the young chap that was involved in this whole scandal, around the Scove scandal. On this morning, he's been paid off, but it's the NDA. I think, look, giving him some money, there's nothing wrong with that, but getting him to sign it away for an NDA. Now, Tocker69 says, heard it's 250 grand. Is that all? 250 grand wouldn't keep me quiet. Wouldn't keep me in beer. Ish. Or cheese cones. But I'm hoping that he's made more than that because, you know, Scove can afford it. So can ITV. Just, that's as much as I'm going to say. But Marcia says, do we really want to see Philip Schofield back on our screens? 3 weeks, Marcia. I'm telling you, watch the reportage. Scove, they're trying to bring him back. Celeb Big Brother. March. And if it's not this year, it might be next year. But it's just interesting the way that they're managing everything, PRing everything to do with Scove within an inch of its life. Why would they do that? What? Very cold hibiscus. My TV says, Adrian, I hope the young man is really banking it, but the whole thing doesn't smell of roses. Oh, I agree completely. Right, thank you for all your comments. I'll leave some of those for later because we've really been going tonight. Thank you for staying with it. Thank you for your likes. Please smash the likes. Blimey, hundreds on here tonight, and we've only got 70 odd likes. I'm knocking me pipe out for 70 likes. How are you, man? So please smash the likes. Thank you for your subscriptions also. Please make sure that you're always subscribed to the channel where the output is ramping up a little. But most of all, thank you for your indulgence. Next live, Sunday, 8 o'clock as always on the... I can't remember the date now. But as I say at all the great cocktail parties, go on, Foxtrot Oscar, and wake the Foxtrot up. Cheers, Rich. There's my... that is very bizarre.